Ryan Sampson, welcome to An Actor Despairs. How are you doing, man?
Hello, I'm very good, thank you. A little bit woolly
It's so
around
good to
the
have you
edges.
here. I'm so impressed with the work and the career that you've carved out for yourself. I mean, it is really incredible. And as an American, you're in the kind of shows that I feel like a long time ago we did make in America, but we don't have anymore.
Oh, you think
And your
so?
work is amazing. And what you've done with Mr. Big Stuff, both starring in it and creating it, is so remarkable. I'm so impressed with you.
Thanks so
But
much,
as
dude.
my audience likes to know, I'd love to start at the beginning. So, first, how are you and where did you grow up?
Well, I'm very well, thank you very much. I grew up in Rotherham, which is a small. Are you in America now?
Yeah, I'm in New York
You're in
City.
America, okay. So it's very much not New York City. It is just whatever the opposite is. So it's Rotherham. So it's up north and a small sort of mining community. And when I was really young, I was like, gotta get out of here. I mean, it's got some great sides to it, but it didn't work for me, and I was just desperate to get out of there. So, kind of put all my energies into doing that.
Well, talk to me about growing up. Were your parents artists? Like, how did this whole thing start to happen for you?
No, my dad's an entertainer, so my dad is like a working man's club singer. I don't know if you have a similar thing there. I am not quite sure what the equivalent would be, but we have these working men's clubs which are like typically for in like mining communities. They used to have a local club where it's like a bar, a pub, and also there's like acts on. You know what I mean? They've recently gained a sort of like cachet as a sort of like working class like emblem, but they're a little bit shonky, shoddy around the edges, I suppose, in a way. And my dad is a singer in one of those, and so I spent a lot of my youth going to these like these sort of clubs with like sticky floors and the smell of dry ice and beer in the air and regret. Yeah.
Ama-
Yeah, yeah. So they weren't.
did
No,
you
they
feel
weren't.
Sorry,
They
go
so
ahead.
they weren't. No, they weren't artists. And my mum was a job sort of similar, akin to like a social worker sort of thing.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. Well, did you feel like, as growing up, like a natural draw to television and films, or were you like a voracious reader at all?
Yeah, I used to just read everything all the time. I was an absolute nerd. I had zero friends from like the age of like 11 to 15. Oh, just absolute the lonely years. I was a real
Oh man,
dweeb, and I mean, when I look back at photos of myself, I kind of get it. I would have stayed away from me too, to be honest. A really quite annoying little guy, and now I'm an annoying, slightly older little guy. So old habits die hard.
well, you seem badass now, and I'm sure everyone wants to be your friend.
Oh, cheers.
But tell me, like, was there a moment, like whether seeing your father perform, or was there a film or a TV show where you started to kind of think about this as like a career that you
Yeah.
could see yourself pursuing?
Yeah, so I was obsessed with Robin Williams, with like a few different people, but Robin Williams. And when he did the voiceover bit at the beginning of Mrs. Doubtfire, I was like, I want to do that. I want to do that. I want to be the person doing all the voices. And then as you get older, you're like, I want to do that, but I also want to do the acting, and then it kind of progresses from there. But yeah, so I suppose a combination of that and then seeing my dad perform on stage and going, oh, people really like you if you do this. And currently, aged 11 to 15, zero people like me. So maybe I need to get myself a bit of a shtick. Yeah, so some years later, started sticking it right up.
Well, that's talk to me about the steps of like pursuing that because for the American audience listening, how far is your town from like London, would you say?
By train, it's like 2.5 hours. But if you're going to drive, I don't know, it's long. It's not for US standards, that's not that far. But for British standards, like we just don't. It might as well be Jupiter. You're in a different
Got it.
place, and like socioeconomically, it was a big jump to go to London. So when I was like 18, I had this plan, which is what I'm going to do. I'd done a few theatre things in Sheffield, where I'm from. Sheffield's like the nearest biggest town that had a theatre in it, right?
Arctic Monkeys, right?
The
Sheffield?
Monkeys from there. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. The
yeah,
Crucible Theatre.
yeah.
It's this amazing theatre, which is like, I'm forgetting this as an actor's podcast, but like in terms of, so for a group of people who will understand the importance of this, they have this really unusual theatre, which is, it has an almost in the round stage. So it's like a big apron stage, which is like surrounding all sides. So I did a few jobs there, like Shakespeare plays, when I was a kid, which was exclusively born out of my mum being like, I think she just was like, there's something that you need to do or that you would be good at, and at the moment, all you're doing is sitting in your room listening to The Beautiful South, like literally one CD over and over again. Don't know what it was, but the obsession with them. So she was like, I'm going to take you to like a youth theatre. And then I ended up just auditioning for a play that was at the Crucible Theatre and got that, the Shakespeare play. And so then when I got to 18, I was like, right, I've got to go to London to be an actor, but there's no way that my family are going to condone me just going, I'm just going to go to be an actor. Or I couldn't really, where I'm from, back then, you couldn't really audition for a drama school. It was not a thing. Like, you know, even the idea of being an actor was like a bit of a crazy suggestion.
Pipe dream?
Yeah, pipe dream. It's like, it's a very working class place, and the very idea, even saying it was like, you're very full of yourself thinking that you could do something like that. That was the vibe. So I got a place at a university, which was near London, Royal Holloway, and then I was there for a year, and then so I knew I had to pretend that I was going to go to this university to my family, so I went there. My nan paid for the first year of the tuition fees, and I ran off, which was really shameful. But I ran off from the university and went to London, auditioned for a play, and then when I got the part in that play, just stopped going to university and didn't tell my family about it. Yeah, so it's a bit rogue, really.
Well, it's amazing. Talk to me about that. I mean, did you always kind of have that plan, or did this audition pop up and you're like, I got to see this through?
I think it's sort of like it develops as you go along. I was like, I know I need to do, and you're sort of like accidentally, you're pushing towards a thing without me having the exact plan of that's what I was going to do. But then now I look back on it, and you do mad things when you're that age because of a desire. You like, you know what you need to be doing, but also because like I'm from I don't know, my family didn't have loads of money, and so I couldn't just leave and expect to be okay, leave university and expect to be okay. So if it hadn't have worked out, honestly, I think I would have. If I'd have left and then been in that play and then nothing else had come my way, I think I would have just ended up like being homeless or something. Because I mean, I don't think I would have gone home, and I was just living out of like a bag. So it was a really dangerous, stupid thing to do, to not tell anyone where you're going. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah,
That's incredible, though. And how was your experience in that production?
It was really good. I mean, that was the thing, is like, so I got in a play which just happened to do really well. It just happened to do really well. And then from that, I got an agent who started sending me like auditions straight away. And I was just really lucky that I got onto another thing off the back of it. So it was enough to keep paying enough bills that I could, you know, like first it was like, I was dating someone who I stayed with at their house in London, and then I could like eventually rent a room and stuff. But I mean, like looking back on it, that was just there was no plan, and it was not very. It was a bit dangerous. It was a stupid thing to do.
That's amazing, though, and you're so incredibly talented. Talk to me about, you know, not going to drama school, because I've had a lot of British actors on my show, and I think traditionally, you know, for the American audience listening, what we have called Actors Access, you guys call Spotlight.
Yeah.
Like, you couldn't really get on that unless you got an agent, which you could only get through drama school. So did you have, like, an awareness?
This is just after that. So when I first started acting, was at the point where you could get an agent without having gone to drama school. So, and you didn't need an equity card and all that sort of thing. So it was like a fringe show that an agent happened to come and see and then sign me off the back of that. Yeah, just really lucky.
But obviously so deserving, and that's incredible. So then did you start auditioning and working pretty quickly?
Yeah. So I auditioned, and what would be the first thing that I got? I can't remember what it was. But I did a TV, like a studio audience sitcom that I got into quite quickly after doing that play, which is just super lucky, because like that could have been years of just not doing anything. It was quite quick, actually. And weirdly, right, so studio audience stuff, I mean, you know, like old school, like your equivalents like Frasier and Cheers, where you've got the live studio audience and everything.
Yeah.
And as much as that's not really the medium that I want to work in, it is a school, it's a masterclass, because like you've got a whole load of people there, it's being filmed, and you've got to make them laugh. And if it doesn't make them laugh, everything is getting cut out. So you have these every week you're doing a new episode, right? And so you start it on you start on the Tuesday, a new episode, and you rehearse it all the week until you do 2 performances of it on a Saturday. So on the Tuesday, you go in for the writers, the read through with all the writers, but because they've got a writer's room, because it's like a comedy, it needs a lot of people writing it. So there'll be like 7 or 8 writers, right? Yeah. So you'll be reading, and it gets to your line, and you're really nervous because it's like, this is one of my first jobs. And you get to your line, and if you said it and it was funny, you'd hear around the room, and if you said it and it was bad, you'd hear, because it was like the tick or the cross, but from 8 pens.
Wow.
So everyone knows whether you're sinking or swimming, sort of thing. And it really sharpens you up.
Do you feel like that was kind of like your comedic training ground? Because you're so amazing at comedy, which I think is the hardest of all the styles to master. Like, was that kind of like your drama school, so to speak?
It was a bit, but I spent a lot of years when I was a kid just like watching comedy and like quite being obsessed with it and how people were performing things. So I think there was a bit of that going on, and then it's put to the test quite publicly in the read-throughs. Yeah, and then you go on set, and there are weird on a studio thing. There's weird other skills that you learn, which is like how to keep an audience engaged when things aren't going well. And so they're there for a 4-hour record, something like that. 3.5 hours. And if something doesn't go right, so one of the lights hasn't gone on when it should do, they might need to fix that, and it might be like 6 solid minutes of you just sat in silence on the set in front of this however many 100 people. And so you're going to have to keep them engaged and finding it funny. So you do things like sometimes when something hadn't gone right, on the next take you'd purposefully fuck something up a little bit so that the audience would find it really funny. Like you have a prop in the wrong place on purpose, just so that they feel like they're seeing something kind of fresh and new. And it kind of like taught me a little bit about just like audience handling. yeah.
Wow, amazing. In working in that environment, did you start to kind of like feel the inclination to develop your own writing, or was this not?
Yeah. Then I started writing then, but that was the beginning of. I didn't know this at the time. It was 15, so I was 21, 31. About 15 years of writing scripts and then not getting commissioned before a TV series did get commissioned. Which you just think like, if I'd known at the time, would I have carried on? I mean, that's a big ask, isn't it?
Yeah.
Man. I don't know if I'd have.
But you did, and obviously this show like found success because you kept working. So talk to me about how did you kind of navigate your career and the moves that you did and did not want to make as you started to find more and more success as we kind of move up to some of the other shows that you did, because I know you've had some that have gone for 5, 6. I think one is even in its 7th season now.
Yeah, Brassic did 7 series. I suppose in terms of this thing about actors going, like, what did I choose to do? I don't know that that's ever really the case. Not for most people, unless you're incredibly lucky and you get like propelled to massive stardom, and then you can pick the things that you're doing. Almost no one has the backing or the finances or whatever to be able to like say no to jobs. So you just hope that you can choose things and then make the thing as good as you possibly can. And I think you can. I think there's like, you can always put something into a character that makes it extra special and kind of brings something to the role, even if maybe the show that you're doing is not the thing that you want to be doing.
Yeah. Well, talk to me about, like characterization and like, something like Brassic. Like, where does your process start when you kind of like get a script and you know what you're going in for, whether you already booked it? Like, what does that look like for you, especially when it's a comedy?
So, I tend to have a slight starting point of basing it off people who I know well, because you know their mannerisms so acutely, and you can kind of start to inhabit them a little bit. So Tomo from Brassic, he's got like quite an upright swagger, this sort of thing in the way he talks. He's always got a cigarette and that sort of thing, quite gesticulatory. And there was a lot of my uncle in him, who's my Uncle Malcolm, who is was when I was a kid, like the black sheep of the family. Like the man, in his latter years, he, coming home drunk from a night out, he saw an open manhole in the road and thought, I know what I'm going to do. And he threw himself down it, broke his arm, and then sued the council for leaving the manhole cover open. Like, the man is a genius. Like, oh God, I shouldn't have really said that.
No, it's fine.
That was years and years
it's
ago.
Totally fine.
Yeah. So
I'll scratch that. We'll pick it back up.
Nice.
So talk. Characterization.
I based that part a little bit on my Uncle Marco, and then from there you sort of work out how what I really like doing actually, right, with a character is you find out the way they walk and move and stuff like that, and then that sort of synaptic link opens up between if you walk a certain way, you start to think a certain way a little bit as well, and so it kind of lets you in an insight into what kind of person, how a person acts like that. So I like to work from a really character-based perspective. I don't know how other people do it if they're not making a character.
No, it really shows your character. I mean, just even switching from that to Mr. Bigstuff, it's like two totally. Robin Williams would be really proud.
Oh, good. Glenn's absolutely the opposite. I don't think he's so much based on an actual person, but I was really interested in doing something where there was someone who. Okay, so something I'm really interested in trying out with acting is I think it's really interesting when someone on camera seems like they're not trying to give their whole self, because as actors we have an inclination to be like, I'm going to actually show you, the audience, I'm going to show you how I'm feeling, and I'm going to be very intense about it. But what if you're playing someone who's like, they don't really want to be there quite, and if there's a sort of slight guardedness and pulling back, I find that actually counterintuitively really draws you in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so interesting. And I'd love to speak about, because obviously the world in entertainment industry has changed a lot between the pandemic and strikes, So obviously now is we're seeing creators do such amazing work, With this, you said you've been writing for a while. Talk to me about where the idea for this show came together.
Well, I'll be honest with you, it was quite a cynical genesis of it. So a commissioner, I pitched loads of things to a commissioner, and they weren't working. And then one thing he said, I think I might like something with you and Danny Dyer, right? He kind of casually mentioned that, right? And I wrote a script and I worked on it for ages and ages. And then after working on it for ages and ages, someone mentioned to me, by the way, do you know that obviously Danny Dyer is in a long-running soap? He's not available. So I'd spent all this time, I thought, for no reason, because he wasn't going to be available. And then, miraculously, the very next week after me telling all my friends, I can't believe I've waited all this time, I saw on a newspaper, we went on this big night out, and in the morning after this night out, on a newspaper, in a newsagent's, it said, Dyer quits Enders, he was quitting his Enders. So I was like, this is so amazingly perfect. I have a project ready to go for him. And then really luckily, the producer that I've been working with knew him. So it was all kind of married up together. But so that was the cynical side of it, was that I wanted to write something for two actors put together. But then, when you actually start to work on that, you need to draw from things in your life. So it ended up being a lot about I'd lost my mum a few years before that, and it sort of fractured our family up a little bit. And so I was sort of working on a script that was how would a family come back together after years of being fractured apart? How could these brothers sort of come back together? And then I kind of put a lot of references to my own life and to our mum in it. And it's sort of quite cathartic, really. But the thing is, you write stuff and you go, I'm just going to make this up completely. And then nothing's made up. It's all completely from your life. It just depends how closely you've been listening. You know what I mean? How much material you have completely depends on how much you've been sort of collecting over the years.
That's so interesting. Thank you for showing that. I mean, I'm curious then, as you got the news that he was available, and you, I imagine, approached him for the idea, did you start to kind of throw some of the ideas you had his way and then kind of reformat everything as it was?
He just really liked it.
Got further.
Well, we had a script, and he just really liked the scripts, and it was go ahead and write the whole series. And then because he didn't have like loads of availability, Sky were like, well, we want you just to make it. Instead of making a pilot, just make it. So it became a real scramble to get it made quick.
Just for the audience listening,
Yeah.
like when did this all start to come together? Is this in the pandemic or?
I can't remember what year it was actually. I suppose it'd been about 3.5 years ago, maybe.
Like 2022-ish?
Maybe. Yeah, I'm not very good with timelines.
It's okay, me either. I'm just curious for like
Yeah.
the lay of the land. Is that this?
So they said, yeah, write a series, we'll make it. And then it was just sort of the scrabble of getting that written well enough in time for us to be able to shoot it quite quickly. But that was a very steep learning curve, I'd say. Because like writing one script is, I mean, you can do that all day and you can do it really well.
It's
but writing
impossible.
a series is a totally different thing. Like the amount of rigor of story that you need to have is just stupidly difficult. And I was like, it's just like, I found it so difficult at first, really difficult. I was not ready for
as someone
it
who's
all.
been on a lot of long-running shows, do you feel like you've kind of learned about like the writer room process, or
Yeah,
did you kind of have
a
to really
bit.
learn this as you?
A bit, but I was a complete idiot, and I was like, I can write one script, therefore I can write a series. And it's like, no. If the difficult thing is writing episode 5 of that series, when all of your plot lines are all running at the same point and they need to come, or whatever, or writing series 2, episode 3, like keeping everything, all the plates that you've started spinning in all these episodes, they all need to keep spinning and they all need to crash it down at exactly the right moments. So that's the thing that I'm still trying to learn to do, because it's tricky. And luckily I've got people who are like helping me and stewarding me along the way, but it ain't easy.
Did you have kind of the rough outline for season 2 as you had to write season 1? Like,
Yeah.
did you see the arc of the show?
Yeah, weirdly, series 2, by the time we finished series 1, I was like, I know pretty much where I want it to go. And luckily, we put it together. And I was looking the other day at like some early notes that I made about where I wanted it to be. And it kind of stayed as that and when we filmed it. So, I mean, some chunks changed, but it was like the outline of it was pretty similar.
But it's such a deep show. I mean, talk to me. Was there ever a moment that it ever felt too personal for you? Like, and I say that as someone who's a huge fan of it, but I mean, it's so raw, and I love that, and it's beautiful, the relationship you have with your brother. So talk to me about the process of like bringing both yourself and creating the fictionalized world.
Well, I was very nervous about how my family would take it, because there's so many references to my mum and to our lives. And it's sort of set in a world that's kind of similar to that. But then luckily it's heightened enough and funny enough that you sort of forgive it, because it feels other. It doesn't feel like it's too biographical or anything like that. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, you performed so many other people's words. Did it feel strange performing your own words? Like, talk to me about
It's really weird. Yeah, it's really weird, because when you get another script with someone else's script, you get it and then you see what they're doing and you go, here's my interpretation on top of that after that. Whereas you've missed out a whole stage of it if you've written it and done it as immediately came to mind. You can't sort of build on it, because it is just how it's. Do you know what I mean? There's no that you're not kind of leapfrogging off the back of someone else's thing. And so I found that I was sort of, in a weird way, less prepared in an acting way for the character than I would have been for a different show, because I would have spent time on trying to work out what the character is. Whereas with this, it was like, well, I know how I'm going to say it from the moment I wrote it down.
interesting. And talk to me about like the comedic aspects of it, because it balances comedy and trauma so well. And you talked about earlier, you did a show that you did in front of a live studio, and being aware of audience and what's going to hit and not hit is it's the hardest. It's what makes comedy so hard. So what was that process like as you guys kind of shot it? Did you change things as you guys were filming, or?
We didn't change those things, but so look, I think where I got really lucky is writing it for 2 actors, and myself actually as well, 3 actors, but me, Harriet and Danny, who you wrote it for with them in mind in the very first instance, and you know them well enough to know how their voices will sound in these words and the kind of very specific tricks that they can do as an actor. So like, the funny thing is with Harriet is she doesn't know necessarily sometimes how funny she is. And so you'll write something and you'll go, well, no, I was doing this, so that you do that thing that you sometimes do when you're surprised. And she goes, oh, yeah, when I go, and she kind of, I don't know, she's got lots at her disposal that sometimes she doesn't know she does. She underrates herself, I think.
Wow, that's amazing. Talk to me. Was there something, that feedback that you got along the way that kind of you redeveloped things for season two? Like, talk to me about, I'm trying to kind of like, how would you describe this show for an American audience listening? Because I really want them to discover it.
Well, I'd say it's about two estranged brothers who come into each other's lives after having been apart for many years, and then want to like tear each other to pieces, but then also end up sort of saving each other a bit. And then as the series progresses, it's about sort of the skeletons in the closet and the family traumas that come out when you're with family, whilst set against pretty outrageously silly scenes. Yeah.
I love that. And, talk to me, like, what has been the biggest learning lesson from having this out in the world now? Like, is it kind of reinvigorated your love for writing? Is it kind of like disillusioned you a bit with the intensity of the whole process? Or do you feel like now you can kind of see yourself creating more and more? Because I imagine having that kind of freedom, it's hard to kind of relinquish that when or it could be freeing when you go to just like a job,
I mean, I'm really excited now that it is out, but I'm also completely exhausted. It's just like been such an intense process. Particularly this last series has been like, so because of scheduling, because of when my next job was shooting Brassic, we only had a window of like 4.5 months to write series two. And like that is not a lot of time. And so you really need to just lock yourself away and not do anything else apart from write for a few months. Luckily, this next, if we get a series 3, I've got a bigger lead time, so it won't be like that. But it's very, like, the exec took me and the producer for a drink, and he was like, he's a very stoic man, he doesn't give a lot away. But he was like, so they're asking for series 2. Can we do this? Is this possible? Because it has to be within 4.5 months. And we were like, okay, if you're saying it in that tone of voice, that's very, like, ominous. But yeah, we did, and it came together, so it's possible. You just might not like to go out at all.
Well, your work is exceptional in this show. I mean, I'm truly so blown away, but it's like balancing two kind of different genres, so to speak, to kind of bring that realism into that comedy. It's so hard to do. And I feel like, I mean, I'm just so blown away by your talents. Like, is there something that this is kind of like, now that you maybe do a season 3, what do you find yourself wanting to do as an artist next?
I'd like to write more. I'd like to write more stories where I'm just really interested in what the bit between very normal people doing very extreme situations. So like the kind of Venn diagram.
Fish out of water.
A little bit, but like, I mean, in terms of how far can you stretch the reality? So with it still feeling like in the world of plausibility, what can happen to these people that's the most extreme things? And I'm sort of like collecting like little newspaper articles. Like I read this one recently about a nurse who, what was it? It was a nurse who was stitching up someone who'd been shot in like a gang warfare, and he said to her, if you ever need to hurt anyone, call me because you've looked after me really well. And that was like the end of the story. But what if she had called him? I'm just sort of fascinated by those sorts of like real life strange little things,
Totally.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
amazing. And obviously, I'm sure it's changed a lot in the UK, but in America, after the pandemic, the business here has really changed. And now we're kind of seeing the streamers, the Netflixes, and all the studios you guys have there as well, not really order things. And it's so amazing to see a show like Mr. Bigstuff get made that's like not based on IP, doesn't have Nicole Kidman's lead, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Like I really
Yeah.
love that for you, and I love that for this business because we need shows like that because I'd imagine, much like yourself, we're interested in human stories,
Yeah,
and
I think so.
talk to me about like for the actors listening out there, because I do have an actor podcast, like what would you recommend for someone interested in creating? Like, did you kind of just, when you started writing, did you kind of just jump into it and got better as you went along? Like, any words of wisdom you might have?
Yeah, for years and years I was just doing it, and then I think really you probably got to. But I would say it's more useful to also write a full story of something instead of writing a pilot script over and over, loads of pilot scripts. I think it's better to hone what it is about a story that makes it returnable in terms of series coming back over and over again, because that is a much more finite, is a much more limited arena that you're playing with. Yes, people want to make limited series sometimes. They want to make a one-off series that's not going to come back, but mainly they're going to want to invest something in something that's going to recoup by coming back and back and back. And so I think working out, if you want to be a TV writer, working out how to make an idea both interesting and special, and yet have enough inherent conflict that it can keep generating more story, that would be the way to go.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing. And I'd be so curious to ask you, like, as streaming has kind of like made the whole, when you see a TV series that airs on every continent on Earth now, is there something that if you do series 3 that you want to kind of like keep in mind for both like maybe perhaps an American audience, or do you like keeping it specific to things that work in the UK?
No, I think I've got to keep it. I think it's like that in the specific as the universal thing. You've got to just be really specific and then hope that people find that universal because of it being very British and very working class and whatever. I can't try and write for an audience who I don't know their value system and their reference points.
I love that. Thank you for remaining true to that. And I'm curious now, like, do you feel like this has changed the conceptions of what you're capable of? Like, are you getting interesting offers now for things that maybe weren't coming your way?
Yeah, it's mad. Yeah, like suddenly people are like wanting me to write things. And I was like, I was doing this for 15 years and nobody wanted
That's amazing.
Nobody wanted anything. And now Danny Dyer gives you a shout out at the BAFTAs, and then suddenly everyone's like, so hey, about that script.
And do you feel like you would feel creatively fulfilled by just like focusing on the writing element, or do you feel the draw to both writing?
I want to do the American thing of being a showrunner, which is not really a thing here, but like you write it, you help to make it going forward. And there are certain areas that I'm really interested in. I love being part of the edit, if possible, and I love having a strong influence on the music. So it's the sort of aesthetic of the thing as a whole. It's like, that's what I really love and what I want to do.
I love that. Would you direct, if you get series 3? Is that something you think you would want to do?
I'm mad on the idea of directing. I don't know. There's bits of it that I'm like, that's not for me. I'm not the one to go. I'm not going to stand up in front of a group of people and go, right, everyone, this is what we're doing. This is, I don't know, I find that a bit alien.
I understand. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, tell me, obviously I've kind of already referenced on this before, but the business has changed a lot. And when you talked about it when you came up, if you hadn't have done that one thing, you have no idea what you might have done. But for the actors listening now that got started, let's just say after the pandemic, and the business has changed a lot. I'm not sure if this is totally true in the UK, but in America, there's no more in-person auditions. It's really changed in the way that you kind of break in. Mm-mm. For the performers and the actors and everyone listening now, if it were you starting today, any words of wisdom you would have for those fighting the fight?
Ooh,
and I know that's really tough. I've asked every guest that's ever done my show that question.
Because I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I... Also, when you're older, you don't have that drive as much to break into an industry, because it's like, now I didn't understand what was going through my head when I was 18, when I was just like, I'm just going to move to London. I have nowhere to go. Like, date someone who's putting on a play and then kind of just play it by ear. Like, that's madman behaviour. I don't have that sort of vibe in me anymore, and so it's hard to go. How would you? I think if you really want it, then people are going to push to do it. But I am not the person to ask, because I do not know.
I feel you. It's crazy, but you're such a dynamic performer, and I think one of the great things that I love about this business is when you watch someone like you perform, you get inspired, and obviously watching you on this medium, television, like, I would love to see you return to the theater. Is that something that you find yourself interested in doing again?
Less and less, to be honest. I did a lot of bad plays early doors. Yeah.
I understand.
And it's like, the plays are a real weird mix, aren't they? It's like, what is it? 1 in every 4 that you go to is good. And so you got to sit through the other ones. Oh, God. I don't know if I can manage that again. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, Ryan Sampson, I'm so grateful for your time. Like, you're
Thanks so much,
truly,
dude.
I'm so incredible, man. It's like awesome watching you work, and you're just, it was a real honor talking with you today, and I really appreciate everything you shared with us.
Awesome. Thanks very much. Nice to talk to you.
Yeah, nice talking to you, and good luck with the rest of the day, okay?
Thank you very much. Have an amazing day. Thanks.